The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers or Rogers TV.
Welcome back. We're here talking about online profile mistakes that make it hard to trust somebody, and we are joined by our expert today, Ashley Kreze. How you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for doing this. So let's dive right into it.
Let's do it.
What are some scenarios that freak people out online?
For online dating profiles, I think sex, the mention of sex in your online dating profile would freak people out. I mean, for as women, if I see or if women see sex right immediately on that dating profile, it's a huge turnoff completely.
Really?
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I've had some clients, female clients actually, who have said that, oh, you know what, I saw in this one profile that he wanted to give full body massages and some other things as well on the first date, and you know, she was just kind of
I don't know if I'd mind that. If I'm checking out a guy on a dating profile and he's telling me he wants to give me a full body massage, I'd be down for that.
I think for women though, I mean, if you give that consent, hey, I'm down for sex the first date, what's going to go beyond that?
Yeah.
I guess just, I don't know. I think gay guys are more promiscuous. I'm not, but I think that's just the way it works. And I think when I see stuff online, I guess I'm just more accustomed to seeing that. I mean, you know, I don't think that's a problem.
Well, I think it comes down to knowing what you want. What are you in there for? Are you in there just for an intimate encounter? Are you in there for short-term dating, long-term dating, a relationship? Then if you know that, then you know what you're getting into, right?
So
and you'll be looking for those things.
Would you think that males or females would mention sex on their profiles more?
Both. Why not?
Really?
Both would?
Maybe more men, but I don't want to lead into that.
Well, when we talk about sex online profiling, what's the difference between like a tease or like something sensual that you say online versus something straight sex on your dating profile? It
depends on the accent you read it in, right? Like it's like, I want to stroke your body. I want to stroke your body, right? Like,
how do you read that online though, right? It's all the same text.
It depends on what the profile picture looks like. It's a whole outline. Come on, don't you do that?
It's true.
Don't
it's true. You miss all those cues though. Yeah, you come up with your own almost assumptions, don't you, based on what you see from past experiences. And
it's funny when that happens though, because you never really think about it. But anyway, okay, let's get into politics and religion.
Yes, I think that's a huge one. I mean, for me, I don't think you should be putting your politics or religion on your dating profile.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree with that, or what are your thoughts?
It could weed out the people you don't want.
Well, if you do put it on.
If you do.
That's fair. I guess that's fair.
Like, it's a no-no topic, though. Like, if you think about what's appropriate for when you meet somebody for the first time. Because that's what your profile is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, if you do or do not want to talk about that kind of stuff, you know, put it on or don't put it on your online profile.
Yeah, it's your own comfort level, isn't it? With, you know, what you're comfortable with disclosing and talking about. Obviously, there's some issues that are more touchy or controversial than others, especially when you're first meeting somebody, right? Because it's that first impression. You click, you look, you say, okay, is there a match?
Yeah.
And you kind of go from there.
So Jackie, you're very opposed to this.
I'm a little opposed to it because you don't want to weed out, or you don't want to weed them out right away. I mean, it really depends on when you're doing an online dating profile. What are you looking for? Are you looking to marry that person you meet online, or are you just looking, hey, let's see what's out there? Because you don't want to just hone in on one specific religion or one specific politic, because you're going to end up excluding other opportunities that you have.
Okay, but let's take it back to something else you said. You said you didn't want to weed out people. But let me tell you, sometimes you can see people's likes, right? For example, on Facebook.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll see, like, they'll like weird things. Like, one of them is like, the latest drug movement or things like that.
Maybe that was like 5 or 6 years ago that they liked that, and then they forgot to upgrade it or clean it up.
That tells me something about them. It tells me that they're into this type of culture, or it gave me an indication of previously they were, right? Now, see,
are you the same person you were 5 or 10 years ago?
It doesn't matter online. You wouldn't know that, would you? There's no timeline.
What do you think?
It's the context, I think, that you don't really get in person. You know, you're in that situation, you're in that moment, you can feel out the context of it, but online, I mean, you don't really know, right? And you know, you could just hit a like on something and not really pay attention to what it is that you're liking. So
but it would still scare me.
There is a bit of that, right? And I think that's the online world, is you're kind of, you know, looking at a profile, looking at a situation with, I guess the eye knowing that.
You know what? I guess the little finger we have here is a little more dangerous than we thought. We've got to be more careful because otherwise you're just scrolling and it's like,
Yes.
right? So I guess that's something we have to be cautious of, right?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
when we are looking at online dating profiles, what about when it comes to mentioning past relationships?
Oh.
You've done it before?
Okay.
I'm very careful about that.
I'm not going to say if I've done or have or have not done that before, but it's definitely a no-go. If I were to come across it, I would probably be like, okay, this person's got some sort of a weird, like, you know.
If they mention it on the first date or so?
Well, because here's the issue, and I'm going to ask your opinion for this in a second.
Sure.
But in some ways, if you mention a past relationship, or I see that somebody has had trouble or had issues with past relationships, I'm going to assume that the other party is not the one to blame. I'm going to assume the person writing about it had something to do with it. So
Okay, but does that depend on how it's brought up, though, right? I mean, if we were just talking about something random and then you bring up the past relationship on an online conversation versus if you were to ask, oh, how long have you been in a relationship? That's different, though, right?
Well, I don't know.
Oh,
What's your
she's hesitating. Ashley's hesitating.
Yeah. Well, we all have past experiences, right? And if you're holding on to those past relationships, looking for, the carbon copy of that person in the future, then, maybe there's a bit of work that needs to be done in terms of letting go of some of those, feelings of attachment that you have towards that person. So.
But what's appropriate to post about your ex online?
I wouldn't post anything, and I would recommend clients not to post anything about their exes online. What are you looking for when you do that, though?
Well, what if she cheated on you? You're like, oh, stupid, she's so fat.
Or what if it say, hey, I'm friends with my ex still. Look, we're still good friends. It was a mutual breakup.
Well,
no, I don't know. I mean, in terms of...
I feel like you have something there. Why don't you tell us? No?
My opinion, I don't think people should post about their exes online.
No? You don't
I
think so?
don't think so. No.
Really?
Because you're here in the present. You're looking for somebody now versus hanging on to things that you had in the past. Right?
Well, I think I'm going to disagree with you. I think that you should post something about your ex, not to the point where you're saying, oh my God, I hate them, they're terrible people. But I think that... what's it called? It's called like subtweets. Have you heard of what subtweets are? It's when you tweet about somebody that you're following, but not tweeting it at them. But the other person that sees a tweet knows that you've tweeted them.
Okay.
Right?
You lost me somewhere.
Very passive aggressive. Very passive aggressive. You just send out a rude tweet and somebody applies it to themselves. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
That's what it is. That's what that sounds like to me. Right? If you do a subtweet about it, totally cool. But as soon as you mention names, not fair game. You want to post it, post it.
Would that mean that he still cares? Would that mean he still cares if they were to do that?
Still cares about the ex?
Yeah, if they were posting things or subtweeting.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
It does sound like it.
I don't know. Well, if I started dating Jackie, right, and let's say that, I had previously slept with Michael, who's not here, because otherwise this would be really awkward, okay, and I started tweeting about Michael while I was becoming infatuated with you, right? That would pose a problem and obviously solve itself because you would.
But are they looking at that tweet? Like, is Michael looking at this tweet?
Well, I'd hope
he
so.
He probably wouldn't know about it.
If I was tweeting something mean about him, he better be looking.
Oh, but then who are you searching for?
I don't know. But
Past or present?
anyway.
That does imply you still care.
Yes. Let's get back on track and let's talk about sounding like you're a player. So if you're on a profile mentioning I've been with this many women and this is what I have done with them, that's not good. That will make it hard for me to trust somebody. What do you guys think about that?
Ashley's eyes brightened here. I think she has something to say about that.
Finally, you agree with him.
Yeah, there's certain tones that words or pictures, I'm sure there's pictures out there on these, dating profiles that say a lot. So, if you got to think about what the message is that you're putting out there, right? If you have a tone or a picture of yourself dressed scandalously, then
it's the impression that you're giving.
Exactly. What's that impression that you're giving?
Okay, so it's all about impressions and it's all about interpretation, and I guess that's just a little, too much to say.
Yeah, well, that kind of brings me to our next one, which is lying in your profile. I mean, people do it all the time.
For
you
sure,
agree? Yeah,
for sure.
But why do people lie on their profile? To make them look better, to present themselves in a certain light?
Best foot forward, right? I've heard stories of people who have posted pictures, from 10 years ago, or lying about their age, lying about children that they have. So
that's extreme.
Yeah, sure. And I guess, like I said, people want to put their best foot forward, but
lying
things to look out for.
But lying
right?
never, at the end of the day, it's lying, right?
Of
it's
course.
never
Lying
gonna
is lying,
be good.
and it will come back to bite you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Just like how I'll go through people's profile pictures, and I'll be like, oh, what do they look like now? What do they look like back then? Are they lying? Because you see the upload date, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to be right back here in a singles game. You definitely don't want to miss it. Coming up later, to snoop or not to snoop. We'll be right back. Profile mistakes that make it hard to trust someone with Ashley J. Kreze. For more information, www.reallifecounseling.com, 289-231-8479.
The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers or Rogers TV.
Welcome back. To snoop or not to snoop? That is the question, and that's what our experts are here talking to us about. So we have wonderful experts here. How you guys doing?
We're very good.
Yes, so let's get right into it. There are a series of 5 questions you should be asking yourself if you plan to snoop, and those begin with...
Yeah, if you do plan to snoop, first ask yourself, why do I feel compelled to snoop? I mean, what do you guys think? Why do people snoop to begin with? Like, why do they feel like they should?
Is it human nature?
It's a very good question. I think with information accessible everywhere these days, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's that innate curiosity. You sort of want to know, right? What's next? What's around the corner? What is my partner doing? You know.
Yeah. So I mean, would there be? I mean, I would see that there's a situation where, I mean, your significant other, everything's fine, and then 2 weeks later they start acting mysterious, or they're constantly checking their phones. Would that initiate this insecurity that, hey, something's up and they're not telling me, so I have to talk about that?
I think it should, yeah. What do you
I
think?
think what it comes down to is it's like a trust issue. Some sort of insecurity will come up, and then all of a sudden, oh, was it something that I said at this particular date, or was it this particular issue? And then all of a sudden, that insecurity comes up within, the person who wants to do the snooping, and wants to find out, was it me, or is it something that they're doing? So it's kind of like a lack of trust in themselves, or the other person.
So, but here's the thing. If the scenario you're talking about, if they're checking their phone a lot and being secretive, I'm thinking that they're hiding something, right? Now, I would think, if it were me, I would want to go and confront them, because that's not right. Something is wrong.
But if you confront them and they say, oh, nothing, don't worry about it.
Then I'm going to snoop. See, there's a level of...
Well, how is that justified? When is that justified? Is snooping ever justified?
I think people are inherently, they like their private space, right? And, when somebody sort of invades their private space, then, that breaches the trust, like we were saying before. But is it okay to snoop? Well, I don't think ever it is okay to snoop, so.
No? I don't know. There's that series, right? There's that checklist you should go through.
Well, it does come down again to trust. If you really want to make sure that the relationship is starting out in trust, if there's something you're uncomfortable with, be direct and ask. And if you don't get an answer that you like, then you can just say, I'm not comfortable with that. Is there some way that you can assure me?
Are you telling us that Kabir was wrong in this, that he shouldn't be snooping? Is that what you're saying, essentially? Yeah?
Yes.
No, if I want to snoop, I'm going to snoop. Here's the thing. Okay, so if something is, as I said to Jackie, if something is wrong in my relationship, right, it's a good thing to ask them, but if they're still hiding something, there aren't very many courses of actions that I can take. Courses of actions, is that correct? There aren't very many things I can do. Right? So one of them that I would think in 21st century would be snooping. What would be other ways of trying to find out if your partner is going to be cheating on you or something's going wrong?
Asking. Having those difficult conversations.
Okay.
But then what if they deny it? That's where snooping really comes in, because then if you have access to that kind of information, wouldn't you think that it would be okay to do that?
No? We're going to leave that for them to think about. But let's move on to our next point.
Okay.
What do I want somebody to be snooping about me? Like, what do you want to think that too? I mean, I like to do the age-old, if I'm not doing it to you, I would trust that you're showing the same values that I do, and you're not doing any of that as well. I don't know if that came across clearly.
No, that worked out. I don't know. So it's basically like what I want to do to something to somebody else that they would do.
Yeah,
to
like
me.
a do unto others is
Do I
do
deserve
to
it?
you, and you do that in dating or online snooping. Would you?
You worded it perfectly, right? You don't do to others as you wouldn't done to your.
In your
want done to yourself.
experiences, have you guys experienced people snooping and saying, you know what, I would do that because they've done it to me, or vice versa?
Clients have talked about it, but I think at the end of the day, having that trust, as Bill said earlier, having that trust in your relationship is key in starting off on the right foot. So
what about in your practice, Bill? Have you seen this before? Clients kind of overstepping their bounds, I guess?
Yeah, that basically comes down to a lack of trust within themselves, that insecurity, and is their partner, doing something. So what it comes down to is them basically wanting to spend all this energy trying to find out, are they being cheated on? And in some ways, they're actually attracting that because of that distrust. Their partner's going, well, if you don't trust me, around this particular simple issue, how are you going to,
That's easier said than done, though, right? I mean, you can't really, you understand, people understand that, it's a trust issue, or maybe it's myself, but you can't help but snoop, right? Like, that's an action. I mean, you could think about, hey, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this, but.
Here's my issue with this whole conversation. We are basing, basically, we're trying here to keep the morality as strong as we can, right? That's what we're trying to do. But we are focusing on trust. We are counting on our partner to be 100% trustworthy. And that's where I think this conversation is lacking, in the sense that, what do I need to do if my partner isn't trustworthy? Then is that the point where I can break the morals? And that brings us into the third question you should be asking, which is, does my stooping cross the line? And let me guess, your answer is yes. Snooping does cross the line?
Yeah, I would say
it
yes.
does. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about you, Bill? You
With
think
the
it crosses?
clients that I've worked with who had that particular issue, when they did snoop and they were found out, basically the relationship was over, or it has been forever changed, and then it takes a lot of work to get back that trust.
Well, what's
Yeah.
appropriate snooping versus, like, is there such a thing?
I was going to say, we were talking about online dating before. Maybe when you're first meeting somebody, right? Or,
Getting
or
some
you're getting,
information from them.
yeah. I mean, Google's there at our disposal, so you know you can do a bit of a gentle background search on somebody to see, okay, where are they from? What have they been involved
So that's a
in?
different term, though. Do we know what that term is? It's called creeping. That's what creeping is, okay?
Sure.
So what changes once you're dating?
How is it different?
Like, how is it different?
Yeah. It comes down to the level of commitment that you both get to the point where you say, okay, now we are a couple and we're exclusive, you know.
So the level of trust hasn't 100% been established yet, therefore it's okay.
So you're saying that if we haven't established our relationship, whether or not we are a couple, it's totally okay to snoop. It's justified.
Because you don't expect the other person to be
you can still
upfront with you
creep on
yet.
Facebook, on Twitter, on these online dating profiles, because basically you're not committed to one another, and then you may not necessarily be saying, or I wouldn't necessarily be telling Kabir everything that's going on in my life because we're not official.
And that's what you're saying? There?
Yeah,
Putting
I
you on
think
the
that is
spot?
what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Whether it's creeping or information gathering,
Yes.
you're still in that process of getting to know, and that's just basically how I see it.
Okay, so the way that this works essentially is that there's a line here, and that is the line of trust. Let's call it the line of trust, okay?
Sounds
So if I'm going to cross over the line of trust, in a relationship, that line is a lot further back in terms of you expect the other person to be a lot more upfront with you, but when you first meet somebody, that line of trust is it's non-existent.
You're developing that line of trust.
You're developing that line of trust. And so what if you end up seeing red flags? So should you end up, cutting that off?
I feel
or
like
should you
women have
pursue
like
it?
this sixth sense where you could feel the red flag in your gut, and I feel like that starts to push people to start snooping. No?
The intuition tells us a lot, doesn't it?
It
I
does.
don't, yeah.
I don't know. I think that's like, information gathering or, that's
Yeah.
totally cool.
Always, I recommend
sense.
all my clients to follow their intuitions and to trust it. And it's been over and over I've seen it happen that when they didn't trust, then down the road, the signs were there and I just didn't pay attention, and now I know, and I could have, been doing other things with my time rather than with this person.
Which, you know what, that brings up another great point that we have. Could you better invest your time other than snooping?
Absolutely.
Of course. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of course.
No?
Enjoying the relationship.
No.
Enjoying each other's company.
Snooping is so fun. I'm just mean today.
Why is it fun? Why is it fun for you to snoop?
Oh my gosh. Okay, when you first meet somebody, here's my thing. Okay, if I'm meeting somebody, I want to go through the whole let's shake hands, let's meet, let's sit down and talk. I want to see what you say to me. Then I want to add them on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And then I want to compare and contrast, okay? Which that would qualify as creeping/snooping because I want to see what they actually said versus what they think.
People aren't as savvy as you are on social media, though, because that might not be best representing them.
Yeah. Okay, so you're right. Coming up after the break, there is a lot of fun stuff like is snooping going to be okay for developing a relationship? Plus, we have Make or Break Up that's coming up later in the show. But you don't want to miss us because our experts are still going to be here and they're waiting for you. To snoop or not to snoop with Ashley Kreze, www.reallifecounseling.com, and Bill Takema, therapybybilltakema.com.
The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers or Rogers TV.
Welcome back. So we're talking about if your time could be better invested in doing other things other than snooping. And I think not, because I think snooping's a lot of fun, but everybody else seems to disagree with me today.
If you are snooping, though, you have to have a little warning label to it, because, I mean, there is that thrill of snooping and seeing what information you're going to find, but over time it's going to get addicting, and it's going to start taking over other aspects of your life.
So are you saying when I sit down on a first date, I should say, hello, I'm Kabir, I'm a snooper?
Maybe they like that.
I don't know. Do your clients, have you in your practice seen clients become relatively afraid of somebody if they say that they want to learn more on a first date?
I don't think I've ever actually heard anybody saying that they're afraid, but I think when we sense that feeling of wanting to snoop, it's important to kind of ask yourself, why am I snooping in the first place? What am I looking for? Because nobody's perfect, right? And I think in terms of, text messages or emails or Facebook, wherever you are, it's that context, right? So, what you and I have a conversation about could be misconstrued if somebody else looks into that conversation, right?
Okay.
Okay, and what about you, Bill? In your practice, have you encountered that, people being afraid of getting too deep on a first date?
It usually comes down to some form of an insecurity, something that's really, they're uncomfortable with, and they tend to focus on that and want assurance from, from their partner who they're beginning to date, and so that type of thing tends to take over, and before you know it, you've got this long, drawn-out conversation, and you're just basically trying to make sure that this person that you're about to start dating is going to be okay with your insecurities.
So if you're snooping, I mean, are there other ways that you better invest your time? Like I said, I mean, if you have situations where that person's always on the phone and you're always wondering who they're texting or who they're messaging, are there solutions that you could involve yourself in that? Is it prying when you're like, hey, who are you texting? Or, oh, what do you want, looking at on Facebook? Is that a way around
if
that?
If you're dating somebody, I don't think so.
No, really. It's a way of snooping, but not really, because they're there.
I think we're all glued to our devices. In any case, I recommended one time, for a client just to put texting away and actually have real conversations with their partner rather than, texting or Facebooking each other, because really the face-to-face is valuable, and it's sort of it's not as present as it once was.
I agree with you, Ashley.
So.
I agree with you. And when I say snoop, I'm not necessarily saying go through Facebook all the time. I'm saying if your partner's in the shower and you're at their apartment, maybe you want to open a couple drawers and just look around.
What are you looking for?
I don't know. It'd just be so fun.
Looking for. And what happens when you find it?
Oh, then you can have a really fun discussion. Oh. Which gets us into our next question. Why am I snooping? Am I just snooping because I'm vulnerable and I feel that I don't want to have an awkward conversation, so I'm just going to look for stuff? Now, you know what my answer is going to be. No, I'm just snooping because it's so freaking fun. But do people that snoop, are they typically vulnerable?
Sure, I think it's as we've said before, it's the insecurities within that person. So, as I said earlier, what are you looking for when you're snooping, right? Because, Bill had mentioned that energy, right? If you're just looking for something negative, then are you going to find it? Probably, right?
Probably.
Would you want to put yourself in that situation, though, where you will find something? And, I mean, I wouldn't know how I want to react. I prefer not to snoop, because it's not being naive. It's not being like, the less I know, the better. But it's one of those, it does affect your trust, right?
Yeah.
You would want them to tell you. I would want them to tell me.
Yeah.
Yes,
is that something,
sure.
Bill?
I would think as well that when it comes down to, let's say you're looking for something specifically, or just something pops out at you, then all of a sudden you've got this secret, and how did you find out about this particular item, or whatever information that you were looking for? How do you then hold on to that information while interacting, and maybe even perhaps keep a straight face because you found something that would allude to a different type of a lifestyle that you're not exposed to.
So speaking of that lifestyle, what if I'm going through my partner's drawers and I find a really interesting magazine which outlines a very interesting lifestyle in terms of one of their activities, like a kinky porn magazine, as my producer says. So what if that happens and I'm uncomfortable with it? Like, can I just totally say, like, dude, I'm not into this. Like, I'm not dating you anymore. Is that okay, or do you think that would be awkward?
Well, that comes down to the point where how did you find this information and how do you approach the conversation? Yes, you can hint and beat around the bush, or you can be direct and saying, well, I got caught snooping. This is what
You would definitely own up to snooping.
Let's put it in the scenario of, I was totally going through your drawers and I found this really interesting magazine, so, you better speak up, buddy.
So either, the person that you were snooping on is going to say, hey, you've crossed the line here and there's the door, or...
Well, who's wrong in this situation? Is it the person who has that kinky porn, or is it the person who's snooping? Ashley? That's a tough one.
I think it's the person that's snooping.
The person that's snooping.
Yeah.
You're just an anti-snooper.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you are. You're an anti-snooper. That's what I'm going to call you.
Bill?
I can't support it.
What about you?
Definitely the person that was doing the snooping, I would feel would be in the wrong.
It would be a deal breaker, essentially, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you know what, I don't know. I just have to continue to disagree. Yeah, because, snooping is a lot of fun, and that's where we're going to leave it. So now, have you actually changed your
No,
opinion on this?
I'm with Ashley here from the beginning. Snooping is not good at all. I know Kabir thinks it's fun, but there's no benefits at all to snooping.
You on
Not
my
for
side,
yourself, not for your significant other.
Bill's on my side. He's totally...
Oh, Bill, nobody is on Kabir's side in this situation.
That's okay.
That's okay. That's all right. For me, it's a deal
Move my
breaker.
stool over.
Oh, that's okay. You could come close. Because we're going to talk about another subject, and it's about making up or breaking up. We have 7 scenarios that we're going to talk about that could or could not be a deal breaker.
Yeah, so let's talk about them.
Yeah, let's talk about them. So one, I have a scenario where you're going on a date with somebody you just met, and at the end of the date, they're paying for their dinner, and they bring out a coupon, or they bring out their Groupon 2-for-1 deal. How do you react to that?
That's my reaction. Like, I am not dating you.
The Mr. Penny Pincher, if you will. Is that good? Is that bad? I mean, is it cute in the beginning? Personally, I don't find that cute at all. You want to impress somebody on the first date.
I think it's admirable.
Admirable?
Sure, why not? Why not? They're using their resources wisely. Maybe there's some other event or experience that they, want to save their money and use it towards. So why not? Why pass judgment?
Face there.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I agree. Maybe not perhaps the first date, but then down the road, if whoever is paying for the bill and they're showing that they're being responsible with their money, it's a good trait, down the road. But then there's a fine line of saving money and then really being thrifty. Then there are some red flags that would go up around really being thrifty. So again, it just comes down to an individual basis.
What if they start pushing that towards you? Oh, we shouldn't spend that much on a salad. It's
I would have been like,
it's
you
ridiculous.
obviously don't make enough for me to want to date you.
Really?
No, I'm not that shallow.
No,
Are you
I
kidding
think
me?
it has a there's 2 ways to look at it. The first way is I agree that you could save as long as they're saving for something like a little splurge. Like say they're saving for a trip, say they're saving for a house or a car. But if they're constantly saving just because they don't want to spend that money, then for me that's a red flag.
It's values, right? It's what's important to me, what's important to you, how we spend our money. But I think at the end of it, that's a good conversation to have down the road with somebody is, how are we going to work with our finances, right?
Well, you see, just jumping back a little, I think that there's a certain amount of being suave about this, right? And most of the time in a traditional male and female relationship, most of the time the male will pay. And I think that there's a certain amount of male dominance that he should want to retain, or he does want to retain. And I think as a result of that, he wants to be suave, and he should be doing it behind the partner's back. I think it's
To quietly slip a Groupon.
No, I'm not even kidding. I think you should go to the front, just be like, I have to use the loo, and get up and walk your little tush to the front and just be like, yeah, I have this coupon. Just don't tell my date about this. Bill, are you on my side about this?
Yeah, that's another creative way of...
Woo! For the win! Team Kabir is winning, Jackie.
Team Kabir, no, we were winning earlier. It's fine. So talking more about this Groupon or saving. What do you think, Ashley? Is it a deal breaker?
No, it's not a deal breaker.
No, not at all.
No,
not
I
at
don't
all.
think so.
I think
For the
it's
first
bad
3 or
that
4 dates, it's not a deal breaker. Do you find in a relationship long term it could be?
They could just be cheapos and ruin your life.
But maybe they're cheapos and they want to go on really great experiences or trips or, savor that house that you really
honey,
want.
once a cheapo, always a cheapo.
No judgment. It's okay.
Okay, and I totally agree with the house and whatnot, but what about the ones who will just penny pinch?
Why don't we ask that in the next segment, because that's going to be coming up. And we have a whole bunch of other scenarios for you, too, that we don't want you to miss. So make sure to stay with us. We're going to be right back here in a singles game. Make up or break up with Bill Takema, certified Gestalt therapist. For information, therapy by BillTakema.com, 905-457-2661.